What's up, everyone? Welcome to this day in Philly Sports History for July 24th, 2024. I'm your host, Jim Montgomery. Welcome to a Wednesday edition of the podcast. Happy Hump Day to everyone out there. Before we get into today's episode, it is Final Four Day. Looking forward to that. But first, a couple quick housekeeping notes. And I've been mentioning my social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Finally, it's all connected to the YouTube channel now. It's all connected to the Spotify. And the best way now to get in touch with me is just go to those platforms or Apple Podcasts, wherever you go, subscribe. I haven't been able to log in for a while to Apple Podcasts. Logged in, doing a lot of good analytics over there as well. So thank you. This thing continues to keep growing, and I truly appreciate it. So show your love. Subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to the YouTube channel, Jimbo_Mott. And if you're not watching on the YouTube channel, just go over there and give it a quick subscribe anyway. I would like to continue. I'm trying to figure out the best way. I know I've been saying I've been working on it for a while, but I'm trying to figure out the best way to maybe come in and do some live things. But all of that is up to date and fully connected now, which I thought it was, and it wasn't. I was playing around with it last night. So everything should be connected. As always, I want to try to rely now more also on the voice and text line, 267-495-8531. That'll get you into the Back to the Future voice and text line, especially with Eagle season around the corner. I'm sure you guys are going to have some very strong takes. I'd like to make it more interactive actually on the podcast rather than just through social media and things like that. So give it a call, text me, send a voicemail, whatever you got to do. And then today, as I mentioned, is the Final Four Day, which means the championship of the Ultimate Nickname Tournament is tomorrow. And then starting Friday, we will start our Philly Olympic Spotlight on the athletes currently participating in Paris that are from our area. Lots of good names. Had to kind of narrow that down a little bit and tighten the criteria somewhat. So that will kick off on Friday. Lots of good feedback about yesterday's Tuesday motivation and positivity. And for the handful of you that did reach out asking if I was okay, yes, I'm okay. It's just one of those things. Kind of felt like a good time to discuss one of those things, because I truly feel if I'm feeling that way, I cannot be the only one. But I appreciate your concerns. Yes, everything is fine with the kids. Kids are healthy. They're just typical 7 and 8 year olds, and they're a handful. But as any parent out there knows, that just is par for the course. But hopefully this is going to provide a platform and a medium for us to kind of discuss and just, whether it's vent, seeking advice, as always, those are things that reach out, social media, the Back to the Future voice and text line, whatever you got to do. But lots of good feedback, so I'm excited about that. But looking forward to kicking off the Olympic Spotlight next week, and then continuing our series on men's mental, or not even mental, just issues that men face on a regular basis next week. All right, it is time for the Final Four. And not quite the Final Four that I had anticipated it being, but we have 4 strong candidates here in this Final Four bracket. And here are the matchups. I'm not going to go too much into the details because at this point you guys know them. Our first matchup is the number 1 seed, the Broad Street Bullies, taking on the 2 seed out of the Balboa region, the Flyin Hawaiian. Who do you got? The Broad Street Bullies or Shane Victorino? Which is the better Philly sports nickname? Broad Street Bullies, 2-time Cup winner. The Flyin Hawaiian obviously won that 2008 championship. Both of these nicknames stem from their style of play and kind of a contrast of styles as well, if we were kind of matching this up as an actual sporting event. But it's your turn. Who moves on to the final of the Ultimate Nickname Tournament? Is it the Broad Street Bullies? Is it the Flyin Hawaiian? Get that vote in on any of my social media, Jimbo_Mott on Twitter and TikTok, at Philly Jimbo on Instagram. Comment right wherever you're listening, whether it's Apple Podcasts, whether it's Spotify, YouTube. hit me up on Facebook, LinkedIn, whatever you got to do to get that vote in. And you can always call or text the Back to the Future voice and text line 267-495-8531. And then our other matchup, it's a strong one. All Sixers in this one. Surprisingly, no Eagles made the Final Four. But we have the number 2 seed, Dr. J, out of the Schuylkill, taking on the number 3 seed out of the Ben Franklin. The answer, Allen Iverson. Two good friends. Dr. J, one of the greatest Sixers ever. His number 6 is in the rafters. Allen Iverson, my favorite all-time Sixer and one of the greatest to ever do it for the Sixers. His number 3 is in the rafters. Dr. J does have the championship. Allen Iverson and Dr. J both won the MVP. Both of them were game changers in their own way, and two great nicknames. Dr. J might be one of the best nicknames in sports, but the answer, the marketing campaign that came with that, with the sneakers and everything, he really was able to maximize that. So it's your turn to vote. Who's going to meet for the Ultimate Nickname Championship? It's the Broad Street Bullies versus the Flyin Hawaiian, and the answer versus Dr. J. Get those votes in. Spread the word. We continue to break records on the voting every single day. So let's make the Final Four and tomorrow's championship the biggest we've had so far. But there are your matchups. The Broad Street Bullies versus the Flyin Hawaiian, and then the answer versus Dr. J. Who do you got? Who is the better Philly sports nickname? Get that vote in, and we will crown a champion on Friday morning. All right. Good game for the Phillies last night. It was, if you like pitchers' duels, you would love this game. It took until the 9th inning for the offense to wake up, but Wheeler was just outstanding, and the offense scored enough in the top of the 9th to win 3-0. Gregory Soto came in. I thought they were going to try to get Alvarado in there, but no. But Cat Marsh with the big sacrifice fly to knock in Bryce, and then Castellanos with the 2-run double. Again, great game, good bounce back for them. I didn't like that they went almost 2 full games between the two without really getting a hit, but they woke up when they needed to. Hopefully today on the getaway day, they will be able to score some runs. But luckily, the Braves were rained out, so the lead is 9 games. The Braves will play 2 against the Reds today. So if they get a split, that would be great as long as the Phillies win, and they will have that 8.5 game cushion again. Aaron Nola on the mound today. We need some playoff Nola, and I'm looking forward to this. Let's go take this series out in Minnesota and move on. Come back home against the Guardians. Another tough series this weekend. I'll be going down Sunday. Looking forward to that, and that's why all these games are important, because the schedule, this is the gauntlet part of the schedule. So if you can win a series here in Minnesota, let's win this series. Lots of trade rumors. We are officially 1 week away from the trade deadline. I think it's pretty obvious the Phillies need some bullpen help. They could use another bat, and the ball is in Dombrowski's court. And I'm anxious to see how this plays out, because a lot of times nobody wants to make the first trade, and once you make the first trade, that sort of sets the tone for everything else. And I don't know if it's like a game of chicken or what, but I don't know. If depending on who you can get, I think the prospects. That's the big. Everybody's talking. Oh, don't give up the prospects. Oh, but guess what? And I'll give you the cautionary tale that I've mentioned quite a few times on this podcast. One Dominic Brown, who was they called him a 6-tool player, whatever the hell that means. And he was a 6-tool player for 6 weeks. He used 1 tool per week and made an all-star team and didn't do shit after that. So I caution you, and he was highly touted, lots of hype around him, and how did that work out? So if you can get a piece that will... Obviously, you don't want to give up one of those guys for somebody who will only be here for a couple months. But if you can trade one of those guys for someone who is under the team's control for 2-3 years, which is pretty much what this, let's be honest, this Phillies team has a window of maybe 2 to 3 years max. So if you can get a player that's going to be able to contribute that whole window, see Aiden Miller, see Andrew Painter, see Justin Crawford. I mean, or not Justin. Yeah, I think it is Justin Crawford. His dad. Yeah, either way. Trade one of those guys and let's get at least one World Series in here and deal with the consequences later. It's just a lot of times in Philly, we tend to do this with our prospects and our players, just overvaluing them. If you can get someone who can win you a World Series and put you in position to compete again next year and the year after, I think it's a no-brainer. But we'll see what Dombrowski thinks. And again, I don't think he's a dumb GM, and he's just not going to trade somebody for the sake of trading somebody. It's got to make sense and it's got to work. But excuse me, I have full faith in Dave Dombrowski that it's going to work. Eagles' first practice is today. Looking forward to just seeing how the guys look. I like when we get the updates from like Elliott Shores Park and the other guys that are always out there at camp saying, oh, this, that, and the other. But I want to see what happens at the end of practice. And I think, to me, you got to address this right away. I want to see what Jalen has to say, how he's going to address the whole, which I still think isn't as big of an issue as everybody's making it out to be. However, I think if he does not address it today, then we might be venturing into it's a bigger issue than what I've been thinking. But I want to hear what Jalen has to say. Looking forward to football season is back. I mean, that in a couple weeks, we're going to have our first preseason game, the Hall of Fame game. So looking forward to that. Did come out yesterday that Cooper DeJean is going to start on the injured list. Hurt his hamstring doing a workout on his own. It has nothing to do with his injury from college, so we'll see how that plays out. Better now than in 6 weeks from now. So rest him up, get him ready to go, and it'll give them a chance to see what the other corners are able to do as well. Hassan Reddick is still holding out for the Jets, and that's important because the Eagles have that conditional pick that is no worse than a third, but can bump up to a second if he plays a certain amount of snaps and gets double-digit sacks. So that is something worth monitoring. It's still way early in training camp to get too concerned about it, but it does have an Eagles impact if it continues to play on this way. And then the Saquon interview that he did was good. Obviously, he seems like he's got a chip on his shoulder and has something to prove, not only to the Giants, but just the league, because everybody kind of thought he was washed up, the national media and all this. I'm looking forward to him. I think he's going to be that missing piece that even in the Super Bowl we could have used. And he talked a lot about Jalen Hurts' leadership, how he's vocal, one of the best leaders he's ever worked with, and how they kind of push each other and how he pushes the other guys. So, again, if this is a Hurts-Sirianni issue, I mentioned it before, you can work fine if you don't 100% agree with your boss. It'll be fine, but I do want to hear what he says. But check out the Saquon interview if you haven't, because it's got me really just kind of pumped up for what they have going. The Sixers signed Reggie Jackson, who's a veteran guard who's going to bring them some depth. He'll probably be like the third or fourth guard. Not a bad signing at all. Paul George met with the media yesterday. He was officially announced as a Sixer. Talked about having no ego. He just wants to win. And what I liked, he kind of outlined what he feels he's going to bring to the table. And he wants to help alleviate some of the pressure from Joe and Tyrese, which totally makes sense. And the thing that he has that Joe and Tyrese don't is he's a closer. He's the guy like Jimmy Butler. You want the ball in his hands at the end of the game. And really, the Sixers haven't had that since Jimmy Butler. So the fact that he's going to be able to kind of, he's won big games, he's won big series, he knows what to do. That, to me, is going to be key. And he talked a lot about the spacing on the floor and how, excuse me, and how the biggest concern is making sure they get to the playoffs healthy. Daryl Morey even spoke a little bit about that, saying they have a plan to give them the best chance to stay healthy. But Paul George said, he's like, I'm going to allow some more spacing, so it's not going to come down on Joe standing at the top of the key trying to drive and getting hammered as he's coming down the lane. And it's going to open things up for Tyrese as well. So I think the way of the big three definitely is starting to fade away in the NBA. However, the Sixers have three guys that do three different things that complement each other instead of having Ben Simmons who does the same thing. And it goes back to the whole Jimmy Butler. We haven't had this since that Jimmy Butler season. So I'm looking forward to it. I think Paul George is going to fit right in. I think he's looking forward to playing in front of the fans. The fans are definitely going to love him. And I've been telling you, I am bullish on the Sixers. I still think there's one more move, some type of power forward coming, whether it's Marcus Morris or somebody of that ilk. I still think there's one more move to sort of round out this roster. We even have some Flyers news today. Michkov has arrived, and he came wearing an orange Phillies hat. I love it. The future is bright. Looking forward to the Flyers, the Sixers. Football season is here, and I'm not trying to wish away the summer, but love me some fall. So it's going to be a good fall here in Philadelphia. All right, today we're going to go back to 1985, and on this day in 1985, the Phillies beat the Astros 3-1 at the Vet. Nolan Ryan and Kevin Gross put on a pitcher's duel, much like yesterday's Phillies-Twins game. Kevin Gross went 8 innings, had 1 walk, 7 Ks, gave up 1 earned run. Nolan Ryan went 7 1/3, 2 walks, 7 Ks, 3 earned runs. Nolan Ryan only gave up 3 hits, though. But he also gave up a game-winning home run by Von Hayes in the bottom of the 8th. A game-winning inside-the-park home run. Yes, Von Hayes hit an inside-the-park home run to win this game against the Astros back in 1985. That's something you don't see every day, especially off a pitcher like Nolan Ryan. But the 3-1 win came courtesy of a 2-run inside-the-park home run by Von Hayes in the bottom of the 8th off of Nolan Ryan, chased him from the game, and then Kent Tekulve came in and saved it for the Phils. And Von Hayes had a good maybe 6-week stretch here in June of 1985, because back on June 11th, he hit 2 home runs in the first inning, and then he hit the game-winning inside-the-park home run off of Nolan Ryan, and then didn't really do much else after that. But on this day in 1985, Phillies beat the Astros when Von Hayes didn't really take Nolan Ryan deep, but hit it in the right spot, game-winning 2-run homer in the bottom of the 8th to win it for the Phils. And again, Nolan Ryan is probably one of the greatest to ever do it, so that's a feather in Von Hayes' cap. And again, just like Don Brown, he had that 6-week stretch where in 1985, Von Hayes was on fire. All right, Michkov is here. I am all about it. Paul George is here. I am all about it. Tyrese Maxey ain't going nowhere. I am all about it. Training camp is here. I'm all about it. What is Jalen going to say? I will have that for you tomorrow. Your guess is as good as mine. And I think you're going to be able to tell a lot about the relationship between he and Nick Sirianni based on what he said. Not necessarily what he says, how he delivers the message. So I will be refreshing Twitter and the Eagles page later this afternoon to see what Jalen has to say. And really, are we going to have a smooth training camp, or is it going to be rocky? Be sure to get your vote in for the Ultimate Philly Sports Nickname Tournament. It is the Final Four. The Broad Street Bullies are taking on the Flyin Hawaiian. The answer is taking on Dr. J. Who do you got? What is the better Philly Sports nickname? Get those votes in. 267-495-8531. That's the Back to the Future voice and text line. Get that and anything else Philly sports related off your chest. Want to talk Phillies trade, Eagles training camp, Paul George, whatever you want. Want to vent about your kids or talk about that. That is all fair game. Get it out there. Early Phillies game today, too. They play at, I believe, 110 or 135 today. So it is an early start for the Phils. Hopefully the Bats can pick up the momentum where they left off in the 9th yesterday. And let's go, Nola. We need you. Get those votes in. Happy Hump Day, everybody. This has been This Day in Philly Sports History for July 24th, 2024. I'm Jim Montgomery. And until next time, I'll see you when I see you.